I'd like to go through the whole warrant, just so that if anyone is watching and wants to hear what the articles are, we can at least list them. And certainly if anyone had any questions, we could try to answer them. And we'll start right in with, I am Doug Story, Bolton moderator. I'm here with Bob Guerrero, chairman of the advisory committee, who's going to present the budget information. We're going to start with Article 1, which is to accept annual reports. That's always a pretty straightforward one. Article 2 is unpaid bills for the previous fiscal year. This year we have a decent list of unpaid bills. We did find out today that 2 of them have been paid. So we're actually going to amend the amount down, or not amend, but we're just going to change it and show that to the town meeting. So that'll look a little better. Article 3 is to replenish the reserve fund, which we do every year. And then Article 4 is the operating budget, at which point Bob would typically do a presentation, which he's going to run through here on our operating budget. Thanks, Bob.
Great, thanks, Doug. And I will turn this light out just for the sake of presentation. I hope the camera can still pick that up. Okay, so I have just a short set of slides that I will run through annual town meeting, and I'll run through that same set right here. This is a summary of the fiscal year 27 budget. The operating budget, which are those expenditures that fund the town's day-to-day functions for FY27, is proposed at $34,901,624, which is a 2.8% increase over last year. And the total budgeted expenditures, which is the operating budget plus our capital expenditures, is proposed at $36,848,290, which is a 7.1% increase over last year, which really reflects the fact that we had an opportunity this year to make some capital investments that we were not able to do over the last few years. So that's actually a good news story. With this proposed budget, we're on solid financial footing. The budget maintains town services, continues our school support, increases our funding reserves, and provides some significant investments that had been deferred in the past. So I'll talk through the sources of revenue for FY27. As usual, the vast majority of our revenue comes from property taxes, and that's at $32.8 million. It makes up 89% of our total revenue. This year, our tax revenue, it's our 2.5% allowable increase every year, plus a significant amount, more than $400,000 of new growth, which is the most new growth that we have had in Bolton in the 10 years that I've gone back and looked, and potentially even the most we've ever had, which is just an indication that the town is growing at a good pace, and that's great news too. After property taxes, local receipts make up 5% of our revenue. We're using some of our free cash to fund some of the articles that I'll mention later that are some of these capital investments. That's 4.4%. And then there are a few other odds and ends that you can see on the chart. So that's our sources of revenue. The total expenditures that I mentioned before, again, this is 2 parts, the operating budget plus the capital expenditures. You can see the breakdown of the operating budget, and it's broken into 5 very large categories. The first one is education. That includes the Neshoba Regional School District, plus Minuteman, and that's at about $23.4 million, an increase of 3.1% from last year. Salary and wages in our town department is $4.8 million. That's the next largest expenditure. That's up 2% from last year. All the other operating expenses in our town departments at about $3.2 million. That's up 4.5% from last year. Insurance benefits and retirement increased by 1.1%, and our debt service decreases this year. So that makes up that total operating budget. And then I mentioned we're making a significant number of investments this year in some areas that really needed it, to the tune of about $1.86 million, which is a 429% increase over last year. Really, that's a reflection of the fact that we were not able to invest in anything last year. And that gives us our total budgeted expenditure total that I mentioned before, 36.8 million. So I'm going to dig a little deeper into just the operating budget portion. I will describe what all those capital expenditures are in just a couple minutes. This is a breakdown of the operating budget. You can see the fractions that make up the total budget. As usual, the education portion is 67%. It's the largest single portion of our operating budget. Public safety is next after that at 9.4%. Following that, employee benefits is 6.5%. Our other general government is 5.6%, public works 5.2%, and you can see the others there. And that makes up the total operating budget of 34.9 million. These are the actual numbers that go into that pie chart. And now we have broken out, those are all the different categories in our budget. You can see what the actual numbers are, and you can see the percentage change from last year. And so the total education increase is about 700,000, which is about 10 times more than the next largest increase, public safety at 70,000. You can see all the numbers that go down from there. Some of the things to point out here is that some of these increases are very modest. Employee benefits is 1.1%, public works 1.7%. Again, debt service decreases. We were fortunate this year, insurance did not go up as much as we expected, only about 2.4%. So that's the operating budget. The capital items that I mentioned before, first we're able to replenish some of our reserve funds. So we have 3 articles that will replenish just our reserve fund, and we will also transfer some funds into our stabilization fund. This is the fund that is used in case of unforeseen emergencies, and we like to maintain that as a fraction, that's roughly 5% of our total operating budget. So we're adding money to that to keep that 5% threshold. You'll recall that last year we established a capital stabilization fund, and so this year we will be moving $579,000 into that fund to seed that fund. And the purpose of that fund is to try to be a little proactive in our planning for how we make our capital expenditures and to set aside funds to do that. There are several capital items that are using free cash. These are fully funding our OPEB contribution, purchasing a new phone system for the public safety building, purchasing some cameras for the transfer station, doing some painting and other exterior maintenance for the DPW garage, purchasing network switches for Foy, Sawyer, and Emerson schools, and purchasing exterior doors for Emerson schools. And all of these are individual articles that you'll hear about in a few minutes. I mentioned the capital stabilization fund. Well, we're seeding it with a significant amount this year, but we're also going to be using some of it. And that is for these 4 items. Upgrading the wastewater treatment facility. This completes some of the work that has been going on over the last few years at the wastewater treatment facility. Doing some improvements at our fire ponds, highway improvements, specifically some road paving, and doing some dam repairs at the Power Brook Dam. And then finally, there are 2 future debt items that you'll hear about in a few minutes. And these are replacements for 2 DPW trucks. The debt for these will not be incurred until we take delivery of the vehicles, which would probably be in fiscal year 28. So you won't see the impact of those in fiscal year 27. We have a series of financial policies that, although they're not requirements, they're best practices, and we try to adhere to them. We like to go into any fiscal year with certified free cash from the previous fiscal year being between 3 to 5% of our total expenditures. We went into the year at 6.7%, which is a great place to be. Coming out of all the budget planning, we like to maintain a balance of at least $350,000 in free cash. With this budget, we'll be maintaining a balance of just over $700,000, which is also great. Total reserves that include free cash, stabilization funds, overlay reserves, we want that to be between 6 and 10% of our operating budget. and we're right in that window at 7.9%. Debt service, we want to keep that no more than 5 to 7% of our revenue. We're at 3%. And we'd like to continue to fund 100% of our OPEB required contributions, which we're able to do in this budget. So all of that is good news, and it goes to the comment I made at the beginning that we are on solid financial footing at this point. The tax bill impacts to this proposed budget. For FY26, the average single-family home value in Bolton is about $866,000. At that average value, the tax bill impact will be about $346. Coming out of the budget process last year, we committed to doing a better job of future forecasting, where we are and where we might see some challenges in the future. So we set some targets for ourselves to hit. For salary and wages, we wanted the increase to be no more than 3% year to year. Insurance, no more than 6%. Employee benefits, no more than 10. Other government, no more than 2.5%. And total education, no more than 3%. And that's what those blue bars are on the left of the plot. The green bars are where we land with our FY27 budget. Salary and wages, insurance and benefits, you can see we're below our targets, that's great. Other general government and education look like they're slightly over the target. It's a little deceiving with the education bars though, because like I said before, this includes both the Neshoba Regional School District and the Minuteman School. If we break out those two, Minuteman actually had a significant decrease in their assessment this year. But the Neshoba Regional School District came in at about 4.2%. So I think there are two areas that we want to keep an eye on when we look at our future forecasting. The first is other general government. I said we wanted a 2.5% increase. The increase this year is 3.3%. That's 108,000. That is almost completely due to the fact that we added an additional 46,000 this year for some town building repairs. These are, as our town buildings get older, the costs of maintenance just go up, and we'll have some discussion in a few minutes about ways we're thinking about addressing that in the long term. But if you look at the pie chart in the upper right, you see that our other general government is only 10% of our total operating budget. So it's not a huge concern that this year we're above our target by a few percent, fractions of a percent. The one that is more concerning is the Neshoba Regional School District assessment. We targeted 3%. The assessment this year is 4.2. That increase is $792,000. Because you can see in the pie chart, the Neshoba Regional School District alone makes up 62% of our total operating budget. That assessment above is higher than 4% is a significant concern. As we've said before, the Neshoba Regional School District operating assessment increases above 3% are just not financially sustainable in the long term. And continued operating assessment increases of 4% or higher will require future Prop 2.5 increases, or Prop 2.5 overrides. I'll show you one illustration of why assessments this high are not sustainable. I mentioned before that we had a significant amount of new growth this year. This represents all of the new revenue that we will bring in FY27. Our allowable Prop 2.5% increase is about $710,000 for FY27. We're projecting $425,000 in new growth, which again is more than we have seen probably ever. Here's where all of that additional revenue is going. The largest chunk of that is going directly to the Neshoba Regional School District assessment. In fact, their assessment at $792,000 is more than all of our Prop 2.5 allowable increase altogether. And then you can see where the other fractions of our new revenue go. While $425,000 of new growth is fantastic, it's unrealistic to think that we will be able to sustain those levels for year over year. If we get down to our typical average new growth is closer to 200,000, then you can see that the Neshoba Regional School District assessment increases in the 4% range will crowd out almost everything else that we can allocate new funding to, new revenue.
Question, or you want to wait till the end? Go ahead.
I have one more slide.
Yeah, let's move questions to the end of his presentation.
And just to give you a sense, that 1% over is $200,000 of revenue. And so you can see the increases that we had in all of our other town departments and how far $200,000 could go if we did not have to apply to the school system. So this is just one illustration of why 4% higher increases are just not sustainable in the long term. So I just come back to the first slide. At the beginning, you can see the proposed budget for FY27. We think this is a good budget in that it maintains town services, school support, increases our funding reserves, and makes significant investments. The one caveat is that NRSD operating assessment increases above 3% are just not financially sustainable. Okay, that's all I have for slide.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. Like to answer any questions we have. If you could just introduce yourself when you ask the question.
Thank you. So I'm Pam Dean, and I'm a resident of Bolton. And I want to thank you for the work that's been put in, everybody in the town involved with our budget. And the real focus this year on maintaining property tax increases, which keeping them, not having to do a 2.5 override, let's put it that way. Where I know in many towns around, in Massachusetts, outside of Massachusetts, there's some severe financial strain happening. I also recognize that school districts, this is a big issue, and it's with other towns and communities and other states as well. But in ours, and last year it was a real wake-up call for me to take the time to get a better understanding of what drove our budget. So these numbers are there and make sense, and I appreciate that the board is working to educate the residents on the size of Neshoba Regional School District's budget and the impact it's having on us all. And my concern is, how do we continue to, or how do we start to get our communities to have a greater voice with the school district, to start influencing them? Because I was beating a drum all year long to a point that I got under their skin, and that was fine. But the concern I had is it was the attitude of the school district was, people don't come to our meetings, or if you ask questions, which I did very specifically, I was not getting answers. And I was also being told Bolton needs to drive their revenue numbers, their growth. To me, that's not the answer, because I recognize we're made up of a community of people that enjoy the lifestyle. We're a right to farm community, and we don't want to have a McDonald's in our neighborhood, and that's why we're living here. So yes, revenue growth is important, different components of it, but the attitude of the school district is, this is Bolton's problem. This isn't Stowe's problem, which I didn't appreciate hearing. I feel there's this attitude of, you should manage your finances like Stowe does. And then I know Lancaster has severe challenges with their budgets. So all this to say, how do we continue to raise awareness in Bolton? We're 25% of the community is retired, so we're probably paying attention. A high percent of our community are working people. We want quality education. which I believe we can still deliver without it costing us our town's services on an ongoing basis, or to have to approve a 2.5. So the question is, how do we get people more involved? How do we make a point of holding the district accountable to the numbers that we put up there? When we say we can't support more than 3%, I'm not convinced, and I was on a few of the calls. I understand there was a tri-town meeting, and it was an interesting kind of commentary at the Budget Warrants Committee. And it was almost like this year they did the towns a favor by keeping their budgets supposedly in check. And I won't go into special education transportation, which is a whole nother topic within the school. But again, they're smoke and mirror with their numbers. When you challenge them to uncover the underlying calculations, what they use, they put their hand up and they don't disclose. So what do we do? How do we put pressure on so that next year we're not facing
That's a great question.
their attitudes?
And thanks for your comments and your question. I'll give you my opinion, and I think there probably are some other perspectives here too. From the select board, the advisory committee, and others in town, I think we are trying to do everything we can think of to raise awareness within the town so that people understand and can make an informed decision. I think we're at the point where the school district needs to hear from a broader base of the town. I think they are hearing from a subset that is more tightly involved in the school, which only makes sense. And that subset is probably telling the school they want more services, they want more programs.
Smaller class sizes.
Right. They want all of these things, and the school's responding to that. But that's a fraction of the town. I think the school district needs to hear from the whole town. And it needs to be more than just once a year an annual town meeting.
Yes,
So,
that's it. And as I commented when we spoke when I first came in, the Budget Warrant Committee doesn't even video their meetings. Where's the transparency for us? And you can sit and make a public comment, but doesn't hold them accountable to respond. All you do is make a comment. So yes, I mean, I'm open to doing whatever's needed to educate more and more people, because we really don't want to, I mean, I say we, and again, that's the school district said, you're speaking for the taxpayers, why don't you have them sign your email? Well, what kind of ridiculousness is that? We don't want to continue to pay more and more taxes or vote 2.5 over and over again. I'm sure there'll come a time we may need to do it for the right reasons, but my sense is the biggest player in those numbers seems to feel like we have no voice, and when they present a budget, there you go. Anyway.
Right, thank you. Any other comments about or questions about the budget? As Bob just presented, appreciate that, Bob, that's incredibly helpful. I just wanted to say a couple things about the warrant, and then we'll go through the rest of the articles. There are 29 articles this year. We don't mail the warrant anymore, so the best place to find it is on the town website. There's a special page there now for town meeting, and it has previous years, but it has this year's warrant. You can find the document and download it, and print it if you'd like. I think it's also available at the town hall and at the library, and if you do want to pick up a copy. So it is important that people come into town meeting, have a look at the warrant before they get there, so they know what it is we're voting on. But I'm going to go through each item here, just by number, read it, and mention what the article is, and then if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to let me know, and we'll talk about it further. So Article 4 was the budget. Article 5 is a new revolving funds for parks and recreation. The article establishes a second revolving fund for the Park and Recreation Department to keep field use revenue separate from program-related revenue. And it shows maximum amount expendable for each fund. Any comments or questions on that? Article 6 is spending limits of revolving fund accounts. We do this every year, and you know, we have 7 of these revolving accounts, and we set spending limits each year for those. Article 7 is a transfer to the stabilization fund. Bob mentioned that earlier, and this is a transfer of not to exceed $427,434.25. And this is to bring the stabilization back up to over the 5%. Yes. Article 8 is a transfer to the capital stabilization fund, which is the new fund specifically for capital projects, not to exceed $579,428. Same as the last article. Article 9 is other post-employment benefits, OPEB contribution, to provide a sum of $98,296 for the town's OPEB contribution fund. Article 10 is one of the first of several articles brought forward by the planning board. They will give a planning board report prior to this, telling us how they voted on these articles to bring them to town meeting. And Article 10 is a land use table amendment. So in our bylaws, we have a pretty extensive land use table, and they've made quite a few updates to this table. You can just see multiple pages, and these are different types of uses that are allowed or not allowed in different zoning districts within the town. Article 11 is driveways and parking bylaw amendment. This is making some changes to our driveways and parking bylaw. When you read the warrant, the changes are in bold, so you can see what changes are being brought forward. Article 12 is major residential development. And again, it's to see if the town will vote to amend a current bylaw. And changes are in bold and underlined. Article 13 is changes to the inclusionary zoning amendment. Primarily changing the board that will review it from the select board to the planning board. Local preference definitions to the planning board in place of the select board. Article 14 is street acceptance for Keys Farm Moderator Way. And just that one, or those two. Article 15 is engineering for the repair or replacement of drinking water well. This is the town well that serves the library and the public safety building. And this is for engineering and design for changes to that public water supply. Article 16 is the public safety building phone infrastructure. Upgrading the phone infrastructure at the public safety building. Article 17 is transfer station cameras to appropriate a sum of $33,833.05 for the purpose of installing cameras at the transfer station. Article 18 is the DPW garage painting to provide funding of up to $46,500 to paint the Department of Public Works garage. Article 19 is the Neshoba Regional School District, Florence Sawyer and Emerson network switches, and this is to appropriate not to exceed $121,400 to replace the network switches at the two schools that are in need of being replaced. Article 20 is the Neshoba Regional School District Emerson doors, and this is to appropriate not to exceed $101,700 for the purpose of replacing the doors at the Emerson School. Article 21 is the wastewater treatment facility upgrades to see if the town will raise and appropriate not to exceed $59,438 for enhancements of the wastewater treatment facility. And this would be coming from capital stabilization, is that correct?
Yes.
I believe that's what it says here, yeah.
Yes.
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 That's right.
And this is as I understand it, it's a part of the process of doing this work at this point in time. Article 22 are fire pond improvements, and to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate not to exceed $20,000 for repairs and improvements of the fire ponds within Bolton, which the fire department maintains, and we have 50 of them. Article 23 are for highway improvements to raise not to exceed $75,000. Also from capital stabilization for highway improvements used to pave Marinot Road and to supplement Chapter 90 paving. Article 24 is an appropriation for the Bower Brook repair of the earthen dam to see if the town will appropriate not to exceed $75,000 to repair the earthen dam at Bower Brook. Also from capital stabilization. Article 25 is the replacement of the 2002 International six-wheel dump sander. So I guess that's a 23-year-old truck that has been due to be replaced, but I think it was put off at least 1 year. And it's an amount not to exceed $338,450. Article 26 is the replacement of a Ford F-550 with a 26,000 GVW dump truck. So this is another truck for DPW, and it is not to exceed $253,198. Article 27 is select board to accept easements. This would be a vote by the town to allow the select board to accept the easements on behalf of the town for a variety of purposes without having to bring it to town meeting and get a vote on every easement that we accept. And these are, I believe, easements that don't require any expenditure.
No cost.
So without no cost involved. Article 28 is to adopt MGL C-138 and 33B alcohol service on Sundays. This would allow the select board to continue to serve as the licensing authority for alcohol licenses. So it's just allowing the select board to issue a license for an establishment to serve between 10 and noon on Sundays and certain legal holidays. I guess that would be for, restaurants serving brunch and that type of thing, where they might want to be able to have the ability to serve it. It's not making that a right, it's allowing the select board to provide that if they decide to. And our final article, number 29, is to authorize the town election, which we have several positions. The Neshoba Regional School District is actually a 3-year position. In the warrant, it says 2 years. We're going to change that before we vote on that. And then there are other members at 3 years, and then 5 years, a member of the planning board. So that's the 29 articles. Any comments or questions on any of those articles? I think we can get through that in one night. That would be my goal, as always. Certainly it depends on where the conversation goes next Monday. But please come to town meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock. Be there early to get signed in. Last year we had a lot of people outside waiting to get in, and it really was a concern. I would think people should try to be there by 6:30 to get in and get a seat. So we have to check in, and if there are a lot of people outside and it holds up the meeting, that's really not fair for everyone who was there on time. We do like to start on time so we can get through the 29 articles in a reasonable time in one day, hopefully. But again, if you would like to really look at this warrant in detail, the thing to do is to go on the town website, get a copy of it, or go to the library or the town hall. Where was the other place?
Council on Aging.
Council on Aging. And can get a copy and certainly look at it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob.
All right, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. So who brings the computer for town meeting? It's not me, right?
It's not-
Okay, you guys have that all under control.
Yes.
Good.